Ladies and gentlemen, next on Town Hall Session 10, on special guest speaker, we have a very special person presenting on Innovate Human. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Matt Chandran, the CEO of iGene Global.
Can you put the sound up? Is it voice on? Excellent. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Being a high-tech man myself, I was struggling to do a low-tech computer system. I'm glad that there's someone to help me. All right, thanks so much. First and foremost, I was told that it's 3:30. Now, do I have about 30 minutes to present? Right? Okay, thank you so much. My name is Matt. I'm from a company called iGene. iGene was founded in Malaysia, but it has got its largest operation in the United Kingdom today. What I'm going to share with you today is a very simple thing, and that is, what is it that we wanted to do when we started? What is it that we are doing and we have done so far? And what is it that we think we want to be doing? The reason I thought that I take that so-called storyline to share with you today is simply because what I see here is fellow researchers, probably some of you with some entrepreneurial aspiration, and you believe that you can make the world a better place. So if you are to make the world a better place, the first thing that you need to know here is that how serious, how intense, and how meaningful it is, things that we are doing. So unless you are able to convince yourself that you are doing something really useful and something that you think is worthwhile, and I'm afraid that most of us will end up wasting too much of our time rather than making any serious impact in the real world. So therefore, I just want to show to you that where and what we were thinking and what we have done today, and where do we want to be and how do we see the world of tomorrow. So I'll just take about 3 minutes to run this video. I can't see the video.
Conducting a post-mortem to find out the cause of death can often be a lengthy and complicated procedure. Researchers in the UK, though, are now testing a more sophisticated technique that allows pathologists to use scanners instead of scalpels.
It's the stuff of science fiction, exploring the human body after death without a scalpel touching the skin. This facility in Sheffield is home to the Digital Autopsy Centre, where pathologists can conduct post-mortems with just a click of a computer mouse.
It will be 5 years this Christmas since 18-year-old Saad Moeddin from Bradford died.
My wife was setting up Christmas dinner and everything else, and I went to wake my son up and found he'd passed away in his sleep.
Because Saad's death occurred at home, an autopsy had to be carried out.
When I got my son's body back, I saw what they did, and he was cut, and the way he was stitched up like a sack. That's not the way we should be treating our loved ones.
Mohammed Ilyas, also from Bradford, who lost his eldest son at the age of 4 months. He too didn't have a choice but to go ahead with a traditional autopsy.
Where for centuries invasive surgery or cutting up bodies has been the only method, today scientists are using scanners as well as scalpels.
I think most people would like to find the cause of death without actually opening the body.
The Black Country coroner will use digital autopsies alongside traditional post-mortems.
This is open to the whole of the community, faith and non-faith groups alike. So it's an opportunity for all members of the community to have an alternative to the traditional post-mortem.
Crossword puzzle is a nice analogy because the clues as to the cause of death are apparent.
By using a scan, without even cutting open the body, I can still find the cause of death.
A reasonable cause of death in about 90% of cases.
I'm like a digital death detective. We had a case that came to us sent by the police as a case of sudden unexpected death. A lady who was found alone in her kitchen on the floor with some external damage to her arm, which they thought was caused by just when she collapsed. But when we scanned the bones, we could see that the arm was completely shattered, more like a beating, or that she'd been kicked. A potential homicide.
This particular case, a self-inflicted gunshot wound, travelled up from underneath the chin. You will be able to see the trauma to the vault of the skull. We can actually see the devastation that's been caused by this shotgun. We can actually look at the skull vault inside out. We were able to demonstrate that there was one shot, bullets retained inside the body.
As to perform a digital autopsy. So this is a hole that's made in the skull. Very repeated minor trauma that's been going on for a long time. Most likely he's been tapping away with the nail. He's either hit a major blood vessel or has introduced air and got an infection.
Digital autopsy comes into its own. It's more about finding the cause of death and helping the relatives come to terms with that death.
This is somebody's mother, father, son, daughter here at Sheffield. They've all got a story, they belong to somebody, and that's why I do what I do.
I think as soon as one does pass away, it's pretty much straight away to do the Islamic bit in the United Kingdom, and then to take away the body by the airlines, and then do the burial in another country.
In Birmingham, the Jewish community are in talks to bring a second digital autopsy centre to this region.
The ability to be able to do what the law requires, but at the same time to expedite Jewish funerals and to expedite it in a way where there's no desecration, as we would see it, of the deceased, is almost a prayer come true.
So what you have seen there is almost 10 years of work before it has become what we call a full-fledged commercial service in England and Wales over the last 2 years. The first installation was done about 3 years ago, and about 220,000 cases are being conducted using the digital autopsy method today in England and Wales alone every year. So it took us 10 years to realize this, and having realized this now, I'm glad to say that IG in many ways have transformed what was once seen as a 550 years old practice, where saw and scalpels were used to cut open the 3 cavities of the body of the deceased in order for the practicing doctor to make an observation and write what was then seen as a conventional post-mortem report. What you observed just now here is in full 3D. As you have had some experience today morning, I believe that the post-mortem examination using the digital autopsy method is now not only being conducted in the surgery room, but it can also be conducted in the court of law in full view of the media, public gallery, the prosecutors, the defense, and the judge. Digital autopsy is not merely about shying away from the process of invasive procedure, but it also brings in what we call a greater integrity to the process of serving social justice. The best of the court, they say that you need to not only serve justice, but you need to be seen to be serving justice. As you can see, that there's greater confidence in the social justice system now, because digital autopsy clearly demonstrates that when someone conducts a post-mortem examination, it is truly based on what we call an objective and a very visual approach, rather than what they call the good old expert testimony. So from classical autopsy, moving to the digital autopsy, what you see there is samples of the reaction of the family, because death is the most distressing time in the what I call in the life of a family, and when their loved one is to be subjected to what we call an invasive procedure, almost all are not very happy about it. So digital autopsy, if I may say, it makes the family a lot more comfortable during a very distressing time to them. So is hygiene all about conducting post-mortem examination differently? The answer to that is certainly not. What we have been doing for more than 10 years, just like how some of the companies like Google, Facebook, and so on has been doing here, is that we have been building what we call a platform. The reason we wanted to be building a platform technology here is simply because we believe once we have got the platform technology right and demonstrate one or two applications onto which the community, the society, the market, and everything can benefit from, then we are able to roll out other services. If you're wondering what am I trying to say, that you have to just flash back to what people like Google did. Many years ago when Google came online, everyone thought Google is a better search engine. But if you remember very carefully, before that there was things like Alta Vista, Yahoo, and all those things, right? So what makes Google search engine is much better? The answer to that, it wasn't what the search engine is about, but it's about what the future can be. So the Google search led to Google Chat, Google Video, Google Map, and then now the Google Map is being to develop what we call the autonomous vehicle and many other things. So that's the kind of approach that hygiene is taking. So using our platform technology that we believe, it's all about how do you deal with very, very intense data, or very big data today, quite fashionably called. So if we are able to handle huge data, we believe that we have another challenge, that is, how do you present this data? Because data in its original form, if I may say, is quite meaningless to people. So one of the methods that we take here is that how well can you deliver so that the delivery point is useful and meaningful to the people. The best example here is what you are seeing there. I was told that this is an LED screen. As an LED screen, it is very, very low definition. Therefore, from the visual quality point of view, it is not at its best. So as you know, that now the standard is that one you expect at least to be like a 4K ultra definition quality. So if you are able to deliver something at that level of what I call visualization quality, then the people who are consuming that, they are able to make better interpretation of what they are looking at. So these are the things that we are aiming from the visualization point of view. If we can do that, then we think that we can change many things. What stops us from reinventing ENT, ear, nose, and throat, if you wish to, or orthopedic, facial reconstruction, dentistry, and just name it, anything and everything, all on mobile device. So think about a future when you go to see a clinician. While the clinician is talking with you, he or she is holding a tablet, a surface, or whatsoever in their hand. Now they have got the 3D of you. And he or she now is able to have what we call a patient-clinician engagement in a very, very high quality setting, whereby now they can describe fully about your state, what they intend to do to you, what's wrong with you, and so on and so forth. So that's what we think the way we end up changing the world of the living using a platform that was built for the deceased. But it doesn't stop there. What happens if we look at horses? What happens if you look at cat, dogs, and all what we call the veterinary or pet animals? So we are also able to come up with various platforms that now can assist the veterinary treatment and many other things. If you're looking at it purely from an economic opportunity, this can be very substantial because most of you, or some of you at least, you may have an experience that people spend more money on their cats and dogs rather than anything. And don't talk about horses because it can cost you millions. So if you are just looking at purely from economic opportunity, this presents you with massive economic gain. So similarly, one other area here we are in an education environment. As all of you know, that there's big money in education, and education is very, very important. And education globally is in crisis because the quality of education has been stagnating for a long, long time. And I think it's about time for us to reinvent the way you do education. One of the most common methods of teaching in the School of Medicine, when it comes to, again, what they call the anatomy here, is the use of what they call the cadaver. A cadaveric body is a body of a disease that is donated to the School of Medicine for the teachers and the students to dissect and learn. As all of you know, in a very civilized world, the access to the cadaver is highly, highly limited. And number two, even if you could get an access to the cadaver, you working on a cadaver is seen to be quite uncivilized. And therefore, may you be in Mayo, in Johns Hopkins, in Oxford, Cambridge, or anywhere, I can assure you that they have stopped working on real bodies and they are working on a lot of dummies. But we know a dummy can never substitute the real physical body of a human. So you just don't have the appreciation of what we call the gross anatomy of a human. So the next best substitute here is to look at what we call an airline, what we call a simulation cockpit. If you really flash back, you will think that no pilot ever get trained in a real airplane. All pilots of the world, they get trained in what you call a simulator. But I'm sure you will agree that very seldom you hear a pilot who fly the airplane for the first time crash it. So what we are trying to say is that if you could create what we call a digital cadaver simulation system, all doctors of the future can be trained intensely within what we call a digital cadaveric environment, whereby they get a real feel of dealing with unlimited number of humans. Just to give you an idea, in England and Wales alone, there's about 550,000 people die. So in a year, we have the potential to get 550,000 bodies in our database. So now if I can make that 550,000 cases available to all the students of the world, and think about the wealth of information and the experience that they can get by working on it in an unlimited fashion. You can have it for free. So that is the game plan. So how does the world see this? This is an initiative that is very, very heavily, if I may say, recognized. In the UK, you may know Princess Diana was double autopsied. So we are very, very well recognized and supported by the Duke of Cambridge, Prince William. Prime Minister David Cameron, at least, has become a former Prime Minister of UK who supports these initiatives extremely well. He's a very, very big supporter. And Forbes, recognizes hygiene as a leader in this space, as a pioneering leader in this space globally. And scholars across the world and here in Malaysia recognize the need for Malaysia to move on rather than stay stagnant, still cutting up the bodies in a very, very, shall I call, old-fashioned or uncivilized way, if I may say. Religious or faith group across the world are also crying, shall I call, of their dissatisfaction about still keeping the old method in place. There are a lot of fatwa in place now in support of digital autopsy. All right. And regulators and what we call authorities who are governing this, coming in full support. Like in the UK, there's something called a Chief Coroner's Office who is totally responsible for all post-mortem examination. The Royal College of Pathology, which is again the regulator, all of you know, they are the FDA of the world of pathology, now endorses and recommends digital autopsy as first-line intervention. And the John Radcliffe Oxford University Hospital provides professional training for all those who are interested in the space of digital autopsy. And if you go through that training, they also award you with the 5 CPD points. And the police in the UK, in Malaysia, and many other countries now begin to use digital autopsy as their preferred method in all their case investigation when it involves what they call a forensic angle. The court, the UK High Court, has made 3 rulings in support of digital autopsy. First, they are totally happy with the digital autopsy evidence. Second, you don't have to conduct the conventional postmortem anymore. Third, if you conduct postmortem using the dissection or invasive method without the consent of the family, you get fined £50,000 in the UK for every case. So these are the major key milestones that's shaping up. State of California, where the famous Silicon Valley and all those things is located, quite recently they passed a law in support of digital autopsy, whereby now digital autopsy is the primary method for postmortem examination in state of California, United States. So these are the things that we have achieved so far from introducing and commercializing, if I may say, a new approach for one to conduct postmortem examination. But does it end there, I need the video here again, yeah, sorry. Otherwise the video keep on disappearing.
Conducting a post-mortem to find out the cause of death can often be a lengthy...
Sorry. Not this one. Yeah, the last one. Can you just read into this? Yeah. Where's my USB? Yeah, can click that. Copy, yeah. Yeah, that one. Yeah, yep. All right, so moving forward, now if you are done with postmortem, what do you do, moving forward? So the vision of hygiene is all about 3 steps. We think if you could digitize everything that what we believe are the living being, then the next step 2 that we wish to do is what we call compute it. And if we are able to compute it, and then the last challenge that we have here is presentation. So hygiene is in the midst of setting up what we call global nodes for Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand from Kuala Lumpur, the European node from London, and then what we call the Americas from San Francisco. The idea here is like a satellite coverage. We think if someone happened to die somewhere, and if the person can be digitized at the point of origin, the data set can now be computed from any of the nodes that hygiene locates in these 3 locations that I mentioned, turning that into what we call the world's largest human body repository. If we are able to achieve that, now the pathologists or the doctors or the students or whomsoever it is, they can now access the system as long as they are authorized from anywhere on planet Earth and have a full access to the cases of interest, and they could either write a postmortem report or they can use these for education purpose or anything. All these locations that you are seeing here is where the primary activities are taking place, and some of the locations that you are looking at is where the human body is being stored, and it is very, very, very quickly becoming what we call a default platform for management of human data. Some of you may know the concept of what they call the Gen Bank. the GenBank, which is the world's largest and single point of storage for all genomics, and now it has become the full proteomics, the metabolomics, and all those things. If all that can be stored in a single location, and I think that the people of the world, they can benefit by taking advantage of that. Why do we want to do that? We want to do that for a number of reasons. We believe and we don't believe not everything on planet Earth can be done by hygiene. We believe that there are many people out there who are much smarter than the people of hygiene, and we believe therefore by giving such access to the people of the world for them to consume this information or this data and come up with some of their own innovation in their own style and flair, then I think that what we will be doing here is that we will be facilitating various unique innovation that can come out from any part of the world. We all know from our experience and history shows that you never know where the bright minds are. The bright mind may be in any part of the world. So you can never put yourself in a position whereby you think that as a single entity or organization, you have all that it takes for you to do all innovation. So, and that's the reason that we want to create what we call a global network, a global environment using one platform so that various work can be done by various people all on a single default platform. So that's the game plan. Everything that you are seeing over here is just a reflection of that. While you and I are talking, ladies and gentlemen, there is about 7.5 billion people on planet Earth. What you may want to look at here is that while I'm talking, about 53 million people already died this year alone. So now the question, are we talking about the 53 million people who has died this year, or are we talking about saving the 7.5 billion people on planet Earth? The idea of us collating huge data from the disease is all about serving the living. So if you can learn from the dead, then you can serve the living better. You and I are duty bound, to serve the people better in year to come by learning from the dead. And the world famous mantra for the world of medicine says, let the dead teach the living. But for the dead to teach the living, you need to give the dead an opportunity to teach the living. Again, we believe and we intend to provide such opportunity and facilitate the learning process with the aim to serve the living better in year to come. So that is, in a nutshell, if I may say, the big vision of hygiene. So with that, I thank you. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Matt. Do we have any question for Mr. Matt? Yes.
I believe the digital autopsy is done using CT scan.
Yes, it is, yes.
So just out of curiosity, when you use CT scan, I don't come from the medical background, yeah? So are all structures are able to be seen via the digital autopsy, via the CT scan?
Okay, no. Let me put it this way. So when you look at the development of what we call any device, in this instance, we call it a data generating device, which is called a CT scan. So the technology behind that, they call it the tomography. The device is designed to pick up data. The device doesn't tell you anything. So now the challenge to you here is this. If there is a device out there which has got the capability to generate data, what kind of data, how much of data, what is it that you want the device to generate? So if you're already getting confused about what the hell is Matt talking, I'll give you an idea about the camera. So if you have a camera and if you're taking a photo, it's the guy who's instructing the camera who decides what kind of data the camera captures. So in the camera language, you've got things like aperture, contrast, and all those things, all right? So the way you set that up ends up telling the camera what kind of data you should be capturing. So in the old fashion, the guy who holds the camera, he tweaks a few buttons and he decides. But in the new age, you have got something called a host software. So every device comes with a little software, and the software tells the device, can you do this, that, and that. So a CT, typically a data generation unit that was designed to pick up data from the living for the use in what they call medical diagnostics. All right. What hygiene has done here is that we have stripped down a standard CT and interface the standard city with our proprietary software, algorithm, and its knowledge base or database into it. So now our software tells the city what I want you to be doing. All right? So using that, what we do is that we generate huge amount of data from the body of the disease. And it happens in less than about 2 minutes. So now having acquired anything between 2 to 4 gigabytes of data per whole body scanning, assuming you are about 6 feet and 75 kilo, now we have got this huge amount of data sitting in our various data centers. So that's where the second step of play comes in, and that is where what we call it a computation. Now you need to cleverly compute that or consume that in such a way that now you need to know what is it that I want. So the data sits there. It's entirely up to you how to use it, how much to use it, for what you are going to use it. So that's the approach that we take. So we are in many ways a data engineering and a data analytics company. Today, to prove the point of what we are doing, we have engineered and consumed the data for a single application, and that is to write a post-mortem report in a better way. And the term that we coined here is digital autopsy. So that's how we go about it.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Yes.
Thank you very much. I've been watching Black Mirror, and then your presentation really makes me interested. Okay, is there any possibility, for example, after I'm gone, but with this technology, I leave an evidence about me to the next generation? So is there any possibility for the next offspring to actually take legal action when they find something is not right with the hospital or medical personnel who actually signed the certificate when I died?
Yes.
Do you actually give the images to the family, or you keep it for the use of hospital only? Yeah.
Okay, let me answer your question in this way. Technologically speaking, anything is possible and anything is doable. So that's the first thing. A second thing, I design a knife. My knife is what we call a titanium grade ultra sharp knife. But I don't tell you to use my knife to kill people. If you choose to kill people using my knife, that's your problem, not my problem. So we are a company that technologically enable everything and anything, but the regulator decides how they choose to govern the use of data. Is it to serve social justice? And I firmly believe that a social justice will be served regardless of the timeline, whether it is before, after, or whatsoever it is. Should someday someone is somewhere and the justice is to be served 250 years later, I think that even if it is posthumously so-called, justice will be served and should be served. And like what you are highlighting, that is one of those unique value of a digital data, because it remains the way it has always been at its best, regardless of the timeline.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Yes? No? No? Thank you very much, Mr. Matt Chandran, the CEO of iGene Global.